position. Rise up, make that decision. God will provide all your needs. He wants you to succeed. Have faith of a mustard seed. Get up on your feet. Rise up.
Welcome to the Drexel Seymour Show. Now, a few weeks ago, I did a discussion with some students who are currently in the United Kingdom. Well, not students, some of them are employees. And I want to understand why they are not returning home. And they give a number of reasons. They said job opportunities, they say the cost of living. There were some of the reasons, they were the top reasons why they're not returning home. And so there's a myth, or I believe there's a myth, that people believe that so many people are leaving the Turks and Caicos, going to the United Kingdom and not returning home. I don't believe that's the case. I do believe people are leaving, but I believe a lot of people are also returning. And so today I want to do this segment with at least 5 persons who have returned to the Turks and Caicos Islands, who were in the UK for quite a number of years, and they have returned home. And I just want to thank them for this opportunity. I want to welcome them to the Drexel Seymour Show. And so I want them to, first of all, start by introducing themselves, saying who you are, when you graduated, and how long you've been back.
So my name is Drexana Seymour. I do have a bachelor's degree in criminology from the University of Hull. I returned home in the year of 2021.
My name is Sasha Arthur. I have a bachelor's degree in law and also a master's in law. I graduated in 2021, returned back in 2022, and now I'm an associate attorney at F. Chambers.
My name is Lauren Hall. I have a master's in marketing and consumer psychology. I graduated in 2021, technically, moved back in 2022, and I'm currently a sales rep for Cargo Express and Tropical Shipping, as well as a writer, a talk show host, and a moderator.
My name is Mary Fofit. So I moved back home in 2020. I have my bachelor's in international hospitality and tourism management. Also have a certificate in higher education in law. And then I also have a certificate in corporate strategy from UCL as well. And now I work as a hotelier. I'm also a TV host. I also do speaking. I am also an entrepreneur of Island Mystique. And that's it. I missed anything? That's it.
Hi, my name is Ariel. I have a bachelor's degree in honors in education studies from the University of Hull. I'm a certified teacher of English. I am also the female CARICOM Youth Ambassador for the Turks and Caicos Islands, and I am the research and planning officer for the Employment Services Department, which is TCIG, and I moved back home in 2020.
Wow, I'm very, diverse. Even though we only have ladies here, it was a diverse background. I just want to say congratulations to all of you guys on your accomplishment. And also, I'm so proud that all of you have returned to the Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, a lot of people say they're not going to come back home, or they will come back, but it's going to be a while because lack of job opportunities and cost of living. Why did you all return?
I guess I can answer first.
Go ahead.
So I didn't think I was coming back.
Really?
I didn't have any plans on coming back immediately. I wanted to work in product management, which is a complete shift to what I do now. I work in hospitality as a guest services manager. And it was really, so I packed up everything one day before the flights were closing to come back to Turks during the pandemic. And I came home, and that's because my mom keep asking me. She's like, "You sure you want to stay there during this? Like, you don't know what's gonna happen." And then I was like, "I don't know, because I want to stay." And then I made the decision like on the night of, before I was leaving, because I was frustrated with all the stuff to pack up, and then I got help with packing it, and then I came back. But it wasn't really intentional. But now that I'm back home, I'm pretty much happy that I did, because I want to contribute to our society, and I also want to make my mark and create a legacy in Turks as well.
Mm-hmm. So why you were not planning on coming back home? I'm just curious.
Well, I think that you get accustomed to a different lifestyle, and it's not a lifestyle in terms of doing whatever you want, but you have a lot of things that makes your life much more richer. So I used to do like dancing and all these other different things. So you have other things to do to accompany whatever you do during the day. but also because I wanted to work in product management, and we don't do a lot of product management in Turks. So I like a lot of creative and innovative stuff, and we didn't do that. And so I found that I came back home and I was trying to figure out, well, where do my skills place at? Like something that I know I'm good at a lot of things, but what is it that I really want to do? And I didn't think that I could have found that. And I think that through hospitality, it led me to navigate into different things that I've liked in terms of my business and so on.
I want to add something to that.
Go ahead, Ariel.
So one of the reasons why I came back home was because of the 2020 pandemic. There was no buses, there was no planes, there was nothing to get me out of Hull, and I desperately wanted to be back home. But like Mary, she said she didn't want to come back home, and that's because we always had this narrative living in Turks and Caicos that you need 10, 20 years worth of work experience. So a lot of the older generation would tell us, go off, get your degree, and you spend a couple of years in that country, and you work and you come back with your experience. So I think that was, for me, that was the narrative of why I didn't necessarily want it to come back home.
So pandemic sort of forced a lot of you to come back.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to agree with Ariel as well. For me, I had no intentions of moving back home as soon as I did. My plan was I'd graduate with my master's and then I'd move to the States, get some more experience, because that's what we're told. You know, you need experience to get a good job. And it was like, okay, if I'm going to give back, or at least if I'm going to be a valuable asset to my country, I need something to give. And I felt like coming straight out of school, it just seemed like I didn't have that. And for me as well, when I moved back, it was a bit by force because I was still living in the UK after the pandemic had happened. And then I came home for a Christmas break in 2020. And when I came back, I got an email from my school saying, do not return, just do not come back to this place. And so I ended up being in Turks for almost 6-7 months. And during that time, I was like, okay, I'm almost done with my degree. I might as well start looking for jobs. And then I ended up going back to England again for the entirety of the summer that year, just to pack up my things and pack up my life, essentially, because at this point, I've already jump-started making a life at home. You know, so it was not in the plans at all to come back as quickly as I did. I did want to come back home, just not as quickly.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. All right. I'm glad all of you came back home. Even if we have to thank pandemic for it. But, you know.
We're back.
Yeah.
We're back.
Shout out to the pandemic.
I'd like to touch on the topic of having a lot of work experience before you come back home. I agree. It is something that we're told to do. Get your experience and then move home, which I think is hard. It's a bit of...
I mean, it's hard getting the work experience.
It's hard to get the work experience. It's hard to get your degree, immediately get a job, spend your time away from your family, and then come back. It's difficult for you to do. So like the other three have said, I wasn't initially coming back home. But what happened with me, because I need to take the legal route, in the UK, they're having a crisis with criminal law. And that's what I'm interested in. So I actually said to myself, you know what, it's going to be easier for me to get a role at home. So it turned around the total different dimension for me. A lot of people say, oh, no, there's no jobs, but there's actually a lot of jobs if you come back home and just look.
And when you say it again, there
are actually a lot of jobs. You just have to come back home and look. Obviously, it depends what you did in school and what you're interested in. But from a legal perspective, I knew that it would be better if I come back home. Another reason I was thinking that I wasn't going to come back home is because of the cost of living. I lived in the UK since 2015. I would come home every summer. A packet of grapes in the UK, it's like £1. When I'd come home, $8. I'm like, what's going on? This is too much. Because in the UK, if I see a pack of grapes for £3, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
You don't get it.
I'm not buying those. I'm going to Lidl. I'm not going to Marks and Spencer. Exactly, Aldi. But really and truly, now that I'm back home, I've realized that having the support system that you have at home helps. It's better than you being out there on your own, even though it might be cheaper, quote unquote. When you come back home, I can be like, Mommy, can you help me out? Can you get me some grapes? And she'll be like, yeah, sure. I have loads of grapes in my fridge. You can come. And you can come and get it. It's as easy as that. You have that support. So I love that I'm back home.
That's a very good point, the support system. I think that's a very valid point. because it can be very lonely out there.
Yeah.
And so at least at home, everybody, you get the support from your friends and close member family.
And also, what people don't realize is that because living in Turks and Caicos is so sunny, we get vitamin D from the sun. You're always happy and cheerful. And when you go to the UK and when it comes to like Christmas time and it's winter time, it's gray and you have seasonal depression. So not having that strong support system of your family, just being out there by yourselves, yes, you have your friends, but like it still doesn't match up to the support of your family. So going through seasonal depression for Sasha from 2015, me 2016, that was rough. It was rough, and a lot of people don't speak about those aspects about living in the UK and how it's still a lot of a struggle than it is living home.
Yeah. So how many people do you think are in the UK? I mean, I saw people mention the word thousands, and of course, we don't know, but based on your interaction and your observation, how many people you think have migrated to the United Kingdom? You think it's in the thousands?
I would say 800 is
About
my
800?
good number.
I don't think it reached 1,000 as yet.
You don't think so?
I think we say thousands because we are hearing of families leaving and, oh, it's a whole family going and the family is 4 people. Like it's,
I think you're right.
We're very dramatic. Naturally, that's how we are as a culture, So I don't feel like it's thousands. It is quite a bit of people, but we still have people coming back too,
And you are evident of that.
All of us came back within the last 2-3 years. So and this is just a small section of that. So I do think that it's very, very dramatized.
Yeah.
I can also
It's inflated, I believe. I don't think it's
I
in
can
the thousands.
also say, being one of the lead organizers for the National Internship and Apprenticeship Program, we have seen that a lot of our students want to come back home. They want to come back home, and because this program being the first of its kind, we now offer the services, well, the government, I should say, offer the services where we get to place you. If you're an intern, you get placed 6 weeks to 8 weeks in your field. We're not placing you to be a data entry clerk. We're not placing you just to get a regular office job. We're placing you within your field. Right now, we have 5 apprentices doing 9 to 12 months work experience in their field, and 1 has already matriculated into a full-time job. And it also offers at least 6 to 8 personal and professional development trainings for you. So by the time you graduate and you leave the apprenticeship program, you have the experience. You have the 1-year experience, and you have it in your field. You leave with a whole lot of certificates as well. So we're making sure that you are well-rounded and that you are prepared to enter the working world on your own.
That's a very good initiative, actually. At least you
Thank
get your
you.
feet into the door. And if you have issues finding a job, and hopefully you do well in the job, and your employer is impressed with you, and they keep you,
It's almost sort of like an extended interview. Courtney Missick, he was a part of the internship and apprenticeship program. He was the first apprentice to be a part of the program, and he became a full-time employee with the Sports Commission within 3 months.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, there was a town hall meeting, and I remember the deputy premier had mentioned that he believes some people don't want to come home because of the social life. You got movie theaters, you got shopping malls, you got things to do, bowling alleys. We don't have those things in Turks and Caicos. Do you think that is a point, that people don't want to come because of the social life? Did that bother you?
I don't think it's heavily on the social life, because I feel like if persons come back home and they can get a decent job and you can make decent amount of money, then you can travel and you can always experience this. You have the best of both worlds. So, but I think it lies fully at the fact that persons just come back home. You don't get a great job, you don't get a great pay, and so now you're restricted to being Turks, and then you're in Turks, but you're also struggling to do your day-to-day, activities in your day-to-day life. So, like, back to what she said, when I came back home, I've applied to, like, millions of jobs for the first couple of months.
Really?
Well, not millions, but
No, but I know what you mean. I know you don't mean millions, but
I applied to a heap of jobs, and a lot of them were like 5 years, 10 years. And you're like, I would be like 33 at this age when you're asking me. So it's outrageous. And I, you know what? When I was doing it, I read about that because I was like, this is discrimination. Like you're putting off certain persons from applying because you look at the role and you're like, oh, this person can't do it because they don't have 10 years. But when you look at what they're requiring from you, I mean, you can do it. Like it's basic stuff that you can do. So I found that I applied to a lot of stuff, and it was either I was too qualified or I was too qualified or it was just out of bounds.
So how were you able to get the job you got then?
Okay, so when I came back home, I worked in real estate first for 3 months. And then I moved into Ritz and I started as a supervisor at Ritz 3 months later. And then 10 months later, I moved into Grace Bay Club as a manager. So for me, it was because I have this thing about myself where it's like if I want something, then it just have to happen because I'm going to be very like diligent in making sure that it happened. And then I think also a part of it is also networking, so you get to know what's out there and persons let you know. Because sometimes some things are not it's not promoted properly. So you don't know until you're having conversations with persons, and then you get to understand, and then it's consistently pushing yourself out there. But I think it's also important, and I know like Sheba always talks about this, and I know a lot of persons talk about like having sponsors in different companies. So that's very important because you need people to be able to mention your name in the rooms that you're not in. So when you start to like network around, then you get people to back you up, and you're able to apply, and then also like I know this person can do this kind of thing.
But I mean like, because you say you applied to a lot of jobs. How long did it take for you to get the first job?
Let's see. I started applying in May 2020, and first job was in January 5th. So
really? It was that long?
It was extremely long, and
I don't even think that's far-fetched either, because I had a similar experience.
I had the same experience as well. It was extremely long.
And it's rejection after rejection, and you start to like.
Sometimes you don't even hear back.
So you didn't feel like packing up and going back to
I
UK?
did. I told Bernicia, I said, I'm moving back. I said, I am moving back. I'm done with this place. I am moving because for me, it felt like a lot of rejection, but I was like, I have my degree. And then it pushed me to be like, okay, so I need to do some other stuff. So I did an internship in the UK. So it was online. And that internship, what it did was like, I would wake up like 4:00 in the morning doing the internship until like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And then afterwards, I did Sheba's mastermind class. So I was just doing a lot of stuff because for me, it became a situation of I need to edge myself out. So everyone's come back with a degree. Everyone has this. How do I make myself set apart from the group so that I can actually get the job?
That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. I think that is right there. It's the turn off to a lot of people with the wait time for employment.
And I would like to hop on that because, like I said, I had started applying for jobs while I was still in school because it was just like, okay, well, it looks like I'm going to be here. And I started applying in March for jobs. The job that I have now is not even a job I applied for. It was a job where they heard me on the radio. I was on a talk show for Tourist Board talking about the importance of internships and giving students the opportunity to get into these workplaces and have the experiences that they need, especially because I would say I'm a child of internships. I've had enough internships that total to about 7 years of experience. And the jobs I applied for back to back were rejecting me either because I was a marketer, not a salesperson, or because I had the marketing experience, but not in that specific industry, And with the job I had, my HR manager heard me in my interview, and she didn't even know who it was that was speaking. And she heard me talk about what I had as qualifications and was like, oh, we got a job here that fits this girl. I need send a message to Blakely and let her know, tell that girl, email me now. And it turned out that the HR manager is my neighbor, and that's been my neighbor all my life. Like, really? that just goes to show she didn't even know, right? And I am grateful for that because whereas other jobs where I would have applied and I didn't hear back for months and waiting and wondering. And it's like, you're stalling your life. That's how I ended up going to England for 3 months that summer because it was just like, ain't nothing happening. Might as well just go back to England and relax and, kick off unemployed. At least it's cheaper there to do that.
But you're probably right, it's cheaper, but isn't the wait period in the UK also the same?
It is, because I was applying to jobs in the UK. I was also applying to jobs in the US as well. And I think because of the pandemic, but also because it's just hard to find jobs straight out of school, like Sasha said. So with that job in particular, they called me in for an interview the Friday and said they would get back to me the Monday. The Monday I had a job. Whereas companies and organizations that I was applying for, I send in my resume, I wouldn't hear from them for 2 months. Then afterwards they're like, oh, you got an interview, do my interview. Then it's another 4 months. And, it's that waiting process that has me wondering, if you're in school right now, just start applying. Just start applying while you just do it from now.
That's good advice.
I think what's also important is the fact that for me, I didn't have the experience where I was like waiting for jobs in England because my degree came with an entire semester just for an internship. So I worked at a special needs school for about a month. But in between that, because I had my degree in education, I was also a supply teacher. So I used to walk around and be substitute teachers for different schools around Hull and other schools as well. But I also feel as if when persons come back home and they realize there's like a limit variety of employment within Turks and Caicos, so they feel as if what they're going off to study, they're coming back home, they feel as if they have to just work in a hotel because everything's based around tourism. And I think that is what discourages people a lot, is that there's basically what I'm going to school for, there isn't a space for me there. Or they assume there isn't a space for them because there's no promotion, there's no marketing, or it's only for a certain type of person that can be able to get this job.
So do you think that,
No, I was going to say, I would challenge the people, you go into a certain field of study and you get, like most universities, they'll be like, jobs that you can get from this field of study, and they list all these different job roles, blah, blah, blah. And you think, oh, this is all that my role, that my degree fits into. So you start canceling out a lot of stuff. Like if you asked me 2 years ago if I would be interested in working in shipping, no, I don't know anything about shipping back then. However, now I can give you a list of things and it fits in with what I study because I'm selling this to people. And it's not the field that I thought I was in, but I still use what I learned.
Very good point. Very good point. So do you think that based on what you're hearing about this wait period, do you think that, because on the interview I did with some of the individuals who are in the UK, they feel that it's who you know and to get something in Turks and Caicos. Do you think that's an issue?
I'd like to answer that. I used to have that perspective. I used to think it's always who you know, the contacts you have, but at the end of the day, as I was in the UK and as I learned skills on my course, it is, like Ziggy said earlier, about networking. It is about who you know, but get to know them. Find the people, get in those rooms, try and put your name out there. I've done a lot of internships, legal internships here in Turks and Caicos. In the firm that I work at, F Chambers, I've never done an internship there. All I did was consistently try to get in there, sending my CV, messaging employees on LinkedIn, and I finally got in there. I moved back November 15th because I got called to the bar in October 2022. I moved back November 6th. I spoke with F Chambers. They told me to come in for an interview that Monday. By the end of the week, I had a job. And then I started the following Tuesday. So it's all about just trying to get yourself out there. You can get to know people. It's not about, okay, this is not my family, or I don't know these kind of people. There's no lawyers in my family. I'm the first lawyer. But I was quickly able to get a role. So it's all about getting yourself out there. If you don't try to get to know anybody, you won't get to know. Some people are just blessed to have family that, are accomplished and well off. But if you don't, you can still try. You can still do what you want to do in life.
I like what you raised too, how you mentioned the consistency. You keep applying, I like that. And we cannot give up.
I just want to add something to what she said. So basically, because what I realized about Turks and Caicos, right? So we're very, very cliquey. So we
What do
only
you mean by that?
we only talk to people in our group, in our circles.
Okay.
Yeah, so we click together.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Got you.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Got you.
So we're very cliquey. So we only talk to persons in our group, and so a lot of times persons do not they won't ask people outside their group information if they need to know it. And to an extent, I think I used to be like that before I went up from school. But when you live away, you're forced to integrate and to network with people outside of your circles and to get information. And I particularly love networking events, so I went to a lot of them when I lived away. So for me, it was like a learning ground, training ground, and my best friend, Bernicia, I used to watch how she networked with people. And I'd be like, how do you do that? I just walk up to strangers and you giggling and laughing how do you do this? And so I started to watch that and go to networking events and push myself out. And then when I came to Turks, I did that. So I would be messaging people hey, we should meet for coffee. We should meet up. I'd like to talk to you about
People
this.
you didn't even know.
People I don't know. And now we got close after that.
Wow.
But it's really just about you. You need to know the people that you want to be around, who have the information that you need, the connections that you want to have. And let it be genuine as well. So it's not I just want you for your connections. And then you network and talk with people, because what I've come to know is people want to share information. They want to help. I have a mentor. I have really close friends who are people that I respect, and people that I look up to, and have things about them that I like, and also want to achieve in my life. But you have to find a way to get into those circles. And a lot of times it's just a conversation, because a lot of times they do want to help.
Go ahead.
I went to Trinidad in January for the Caribbean Leaders Youth Summit. And one of my friends that I met over there, he said, if you're not at the table, then you're on the dinner table. Basically,
If you're not at, you're under?
you gotta eat. You gotta eat.
Okay.
And in that, it's a sense of who's going to promote you but you. Going off to university, you realize that being home, there's probably only 10 of us competing for the same job, but there's a guarantee that all 10 of us are going to get a job in the same field. But when you go off to England, you realize, it's 10,000 of us competing for this one job. Mm-hmm. So being off in England, you learn how to be more sociable. You learn how to do the English small talk, because they love to small talk. Mm. So you learn how to put yourself out there. So I would say that those persons who are away at school or living abroad, take those skills and bring it back home, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know which room you're going to be in, where you have to promote yourself in a genuine and humble way, but that can also get you a job.
Right. So what advice would you give to persons who are watching the show right now and they're thinking about leaving the Turks and Caicos Islands to go to the United Kingdom, whether it's for school or whether it's for employment? What would you tell them?
I would say come back when you're done.
But what if they're not going for school? They're just saying they had enough and they're going to go to UK.
Come back when you're done looking for your job. I can distinctly remember before I had moved, one of the last things my grandmother said to me was, go off, get your papers, but come back, because your country needs you. And at the end of the day, being a Turks and Caicos Islander is not something that everybody can say they are. Being from here, growing up here, having an experience living here, not everyone has that. There's a reason why you have it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Turks and Caicos is so open to so many things. I did not come back here thinking that I would be able to be a writer, a moderator, that I'd be able to do freelance marketing on the side of a job that I already have. None of the things that I'm doing right now did I ever imagine I would be able to do at home. So but I do it. There are more opportunities, and the thing is that I think as people, and like we all said previously, where you have people telling you, oh, nothing home for you, and oh my goodness, make sure you go away and stay. Look, go get the experience. We need people with experience, with wide open minds. I wholeheartedly believe that you should go away and see more than just Turks and Caicos. But at the end of the day, if we want Turks and Caicos to grow, it's not going to be the people who are 50 and over who are going to do it now. All right? It's us. It's only us who could do it. So if you want Turks and Caicos to grow, if you want your children to have a place to call home, there's only one home we got here. So it's just come back. Once you've gotten what it is you feel you need to get, come back so you can share it with your country and your people.
I agree with Lauren. For me, I never would have thought that I would be female CARICOM Youth Ambassador, and I have a platform where I get to interact with other regional youth leaders. I never would have thought that coming back home, I would be one of the lead organizers for the first national internship and apprenticeship program, and we're currently going into our second year. I would have never thought that I would have been a host for multiple events, and people now see me as a speaker, and I do speaking engagements now. I think being from Turks and Caicos and coming home and bringing those global experiences back home, it makes you so unique. It makes you see your country. It forces you in a way to see where your country could go, and it forces you to be more a part and more involved, because you've already experienced what you've experienced in wherever country, and you realize, I don't want to be there anymore. And like I always tell people, I say, when it's time to come back home, and they see that your passport say you're born in Grand Turk, Providence Islands, you're from Turks and Caicos, they sending you back Turks and Caicos.
Even with a British passport?
Even the British passport say Grand Turk. They say I born in Grand Turk, you know? But that's just to say, like, no matter where you go, Turks and Caicos will always be home. And like I said on the podcast with Andy Mizik, who's the male CARICOM Youth Ambassador, I said, you can't say you want to see a change, but you're not here to make the change.
Yeah, you're right.
Everyone, we need to stop going on the Facebook and the Twitters and the Instagrams and all of that, and making our comments and making this, but you're not actively being involved. You're not actively going to the seminars or whatever events that they're having to voice your opinions. You're not choosing the right avenues where to express your emotions and express your opinions and expressing your thoughts, you know? So you have to come back home and make a contribution, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens to you in whatever country you are, Turks and Caicos will always be home. So you have to ensure that you preserve Turks and Caicos, not only for yourself, but for future generations to come.
Very good. So I take it then, that you guys have no regrets. No regrets so far.
No regrets.
Go ahead.
Can I add something? Sorry, I feel so bad because I feel like now how I be on Let's Get Candid, I'm like, I want to say one last
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Mary.
But okay, so to add to what both Lauren and Ariel said, so for me, 2019, I came back home for Christmas. And so I told myself, like, okay, so I'm going back in 2020, and I'm going to pay attention to all the things that I enjoy about living away, the things that I like, what makes my life easier, what's convenient, and then use that to like build on ideas that when I come back to Turks, I can implement. So really and truthfully, like, open up your mind to so much more, because in Turks, like, there is so much stuff that you can do in Turks, but you have to really like open your mind to see that, because we have industries that we haven't tapped in yet. We have infrastructure and a lot of different things that we can build upon. So for example, like I'm launching Island Mystique. It's a culturally immersive tour experience company. Thank you. And also, like, so we talk about diversifying tourism product and service since forever. I've read the KPMG report from 2015 or 2016, yeah. And they talked about how we can diversify our tourism product and service, and we've never done it. I've also checked, we don't have a national tourism policy plan. And so I came back and I'm like, okay, I don't need to be in government, because sometimes you don't necessarily need to be in government to make change and to contribute. So through this company, it acts as a catalyst to diversify our tourism product and service, and we'll tap into tourism market, particularly persons who travel for culture, and then later on we go into the MICE market and so on. But the idea is that when you come to Turks, like, you can find things that you can do, and don't also feel like you can't scale up fast. So when I came back home in 2020, maybe it's 3 years now. So it's like 3 years since I've been back home, but I've done so much things in between that time. So I've launched, we've done Let's Get Candid. We're now doing season 2. I've done a women's group. I do talking. I do a host, and now I have a great job and a great company, and then I'm launching my business as well. And I remember having a conversation with Sheba, so I did a career coach with her one-on-one. And she's like, you know, how long you think it's going to take you to do this? I was like, 10 years. She's like, you know that you can do it in a short amount of time. So what I've did with myself is like be extremely intentional about what I want, and then like being very like persistent at making sure that these things happen. Not necessarily in a timeline, because a lot of things I didn't know was going to happen. I mean, I've talked about, for example, Let's Get Candid, but the same year that I moved home, I thought about it. later on, late in that year, November, Leo reached out to me and he was like, oh, and I was like, I already have the idea because I already had it. So the whole thing is like just plan and things will happen, will fall into place, and then some things will come into place that you didn't know. But you have to really put yourself out there, be open to new things, look at Turks and Caicos as like, people come here and they look at it with their eyes open like, I could start a business here. Like, that's how tourists come, investors come, because they see, and also because they've lived away. So I also tell, like, I don't know if I should say this, but I've been telling my coworkers, like, if they tell me that they want to go away for school, I'm like, you should go. You should get the experience. You should get the exposure, open your mind to different things, and then come back and then make a contribution because you're able to do that in whichever way you think you can.
Roxana, any regrets? Any regrets, Roxana? I know you're back home, but what are your thoughts?
I wouldn't say I necessarily have any regrets moving back home, but I kind of do regret my degree.
Oh.
Don't make me nervous, man.
No, go ahead. No, yeah. Mhm. You mean the major you did?
Yeah.
You wish you had done something different?
Yeah, correct.
Or a double major?
Yeah, so I wish I did a bit more research on what we actually need in Turks before I actually did my degree. Because right now, there's literally no jobs in the police force for me specifically.
Or social development.
Yeah.
But you should do what you want to do, though. I think you should do what you want to do, even if it's not needed in the country. I think there is a need for what you do. It's just that we just can't tap into it yet. I don't know why. Drexana, you did criminology. I'm quite sure there's a need for criminologists in the country.
I believe that there is, as with the National Internship and Apprenticeship Program, when I look at the degrees that young people are leaving with, like they're graduating with, they're going off to school and studying. Sometimes, and we are assigned to assign them with companies, I be sitting down there trying to figure out where am I going to place them, because it's like it forces us as a department to kind of dive deep into the other organizations, like really go out there and actually search for companies, because there are companies that do this and there are persons that hold these degrees and are doing these positions. Like, we gotta find you. And I would say go off and yes, study whatever it is that you need to study. But like Drexana say, also see what is actually needed in the country, and then kind of gear towards your career path in line with that, because you may be the first and your contribution is going to be big, and then it's going to allow other young persons to be like, oh, so I could get a degree of economics as well and do this. So it also allows you to be like the poster child for that degree as well. So we've had persons who work in the morgue. I can't do it. You have persons who work in the morgue, and she is Rashana Robinson. She is enjoying working in the morgue. That's what she wants to do. Personally, for me, I can't stomach it. But this is what she went off to do, and now she's gaining that work experience in that field. We have other persons who worked in sports, and we worked in health. And what people don't realize is that I feel as if a lot of our youth are kind of swaying away from
the traditional
hospitality studies. And law and then all that kind of stuff. They're swaying away from it, and they're going more into like economics, agriculture, forensic science, criminology, health, and different areas of medicine and all of this. And I'm just like, the generation that is coming, and us, Turks and Caicos, if y'all come back home, we will definitely be a force to reckon with.
Absolutely. So go ahead.
I feel so bad.
Why you feel bad?
Because I always do this. I always got something to say.
Don't worry about that. That's great.
Okay,
That's a good thing.
I want to add something to what Ariel said. So also, like, I know we're promoting persons go get your degree, do this as well, but I think there's also an onus on the government as well to create some of these opportunities. I mean, from an infrastructure point of view. So, for example, I recently just read this article. So Dubai's investing in their R&D and the gaming to build up their economy to be a gaming hub. So I feel like we need to also look in terms of the government at what things that we need to build upon, because sometimes you need those infrastructures and policies in place to supplement persons coming back to be able to function and properly work into these areas. So R&D for me is something that I'm really interested in. So it's research and design development. And persons like companies, not companies, but countries, for example, like Germany, they invest a lot of money inside of their automation industry. And so what that does is it helps persons to, like, innovation. How can we do this? How can we create this? And I feel like, yes, get your degree in different things, but if you come back and, it's a lot of, it's really hard to do business in Turks. It's really hard to do anything in Turks. So we need those infrastructures and policies in place that makes it a bit easier, but we also need the government support. And I feel like ways in doing that is investing money into it, get an R&D, get persons, you say you want to be, like, we want to get into tech, we want to get into fintech. We need to start creating, avenues for persons to start getting trained in it, understanding it. We need to really create that infrastructure so that people can come and feel like, I actually studied something that I can do in my own country, and help to build that up, because we have the capacity to be able to become a lot of great things in our own, in Turks and Caicos in the region. Like, I recently went to the economic conference, and, one of the speakers, they spoke about that, like, how we are positioned so well to really, like, capitalize on a lot of different industries, but we're not creating the infrastructure and policies that we need for a person to really function properly in that and really, build on that.
That's a good point. I also think that we should, I'm coming to you right now, Lauren. I also think that we should, I also think, speaking of government, I think the government needs a database of all persons who are abroad, whether they're working, whether they're studying, and I think that's what we need to do. I know there's an office in London, but when I spoke to the office in London, they said only 150 people are registered at that office in London. And I think that's a gap, and I think we could have that data. For example, we know Jack Sanskrit in criminology. We have this opening, we could assign, maybe that's what the internship thing is about, I don't know. But I think we need to have a database of everybody.
I agree. And what I want to add is that, yes, we do need the support, but at the same time, you have to be confident in you. So if that means sitting down and looking around this country and saying, you know what, you are lacking me, sit down, make your proposal, and go to them. Push that to them and say, look, this is what you need. I am the person who could provide it, because clearly you're not doing it. You need me.
I like it.
Yes, so it's hard to get people who don't understand what you do to see the value in what you do. It's difficult, So what you need is to show them, this is how I can help you. If that means going to multiple companies with different proposals and saying, look, this is what I want to be able to do for you. Give me the opportunity to do this. If you see any growth or any sort of progress from what I'm doing, then let's make this a full-time thing. You got to do it. But you have to put yourself out.
Very good point, Lauren. Very, very good point.
I would say I agree wholeheartedly with Lauren. And one thing I've noticed as being a regional representative and being CARICOM Youth Ambassador for Turks and Caicos is that when you come in contact with the other regional leaders and the other Caribbean countries, they have that tenacity. They are out there. They're going to promote themselves. They're going to make room for themselves. And us from Turks and Caicos, I would say that we're very privileged because we're so small compared to their sizes. So, sometimes we have this little lackadaisical, we're very relaxed, nonchalant. And being in the room with those persons from the other regions, I said, hey, I had to ensure that whenever there was time for us to make a statement or a contribution, I was standing up and making a statement and a contribution and letting them know where I was from, because they also have that 10,000 persons fighting for one job, where in Turks, we probably have 10 persons fighting for the same job, but all of us will get a job in our field. So I totally agree with Lauren. We have to promote ourselves. We have to have the tenacity. We have to have that drive. We have to be determined. And we have to show people our value and our value to their company or their enterprise.
And I also want to throw it out there, too, that for those persons who are thinking about not returning home or hesitant or thinking about leaving, sometimes you might just need to consider becoming an entrepreneur. If you're looking for this job and you can't find that job, then maybe you need to be the one to be the employer, And you might say, well, I ain't got the money, but you have to start from somewhere. And I think some people speak to me, I think your boss, Mark, I think that's how he started his firm, because he was basically, well, that's what he told me many years ago. I don't even remember, but he said he was unable to get a full-time job. I mean, he did his 3 months to get called to the bar, but it forced him to create his own company, and here he is now employing you. And I think that's something we need to think about. We need to become entrepreneurs.
So, adding to what you said, so what I realized after we've launched Let's Get Candid is that you have to have an idea what you want to do, and then you have to like really sell it and create a hype. And people in Turks, we already know, whatever getting hyped up, they like to jump on board. So you have to create something, get them hyped up about it, get them intrigued about it, and then you'll find that in the long term they'll stick with you. But you have to pretty much you have to see where you fit in, create the space, like Lauren said, create your own space, and then people will eventually come along with it. But like you cannot allow yourself to be like, well, there's no space for me or I can't do it. Like even lack of funding, like I'm launching Island Mystique. At the beginning, there was SME, the program didn't have my area inside of it. But I was so persistent, I was like, this happening. So I went ahead, we have the bank account and everything. And they end up, so the lady I was in contact with, she's like, we're gonna put this inside of the area, and they called me back and it's like, so we have this in the area and specifically, and I got everything done and it worked out. But the idea is that you literally have to create the hype, bring it to people's attention, why we need it, and then they will eventually come along.
Very good. Well, I think we've come to the end of our show, and I want to thank all of you for being on the show. Very, very good conversation. Probably need to have a part 2. Of course, before we leave, do you have any closing remarks you want to say, especially those persons who are in the UK or plan to move to UK? Any closing remarks?
I would say, as your female CARICOM Youth Ambassador of the Turks and Caicos Islands, I would say that 2023 is declared as the year of the youth. And with that, I empower and I encourage all Turks and Caicos Islander youth to return home and make your contribution. There's always avenues, there's always different departments, the information is out there, you just have to seek it. And like me, if I didn't return back home, I wouldn't have this platform that I have now. I wouldn't be able to represent my country on a wider scale. I wouldn't be able to encourage other youth and interact with other youth from different aspects of life. So I would just encourage you to come back home. And if you fail at whatever you're doing, just remember you got to get back up. It's okay to fail, because when you fail, you're not starting over. You're starting from experience. So and that's what I would say to all of you who don't want to return back home.
I guess we're going down the line. Okay, so what I would say is that don't be discouraged by what you see, because we already know that Turks is a developing country, but a lot of things that we see we don't really like and we might be put off by it, but come with a vision of what you want, what you'd like to see. Be very persistent at making it happen. Like, if you be very persistent at it, you can make something happen in a year that people think need to happen in 5 years. Like, there's something that I always tell myself, it's like, what a difference a year can make. And then I'll look back a year and I'll be like, wow, all of this happened within the year. So you have to have a vision of what you want, be persistent, network around, because we do have people in Turks and Caicos that you can get information from. There's people that want to help. I mean, sometimes we feel like we don't have that because we're so closed off into our own separate groups. But once you start to network out and speak to different people and show up at networking events and so on, you're able to really connect with people and realize about the different opportunities that we have in Turks. You get access to information. Knowledge is power. Once you know the information, you're able to take that and you can go ahead and run with it. So don't be discouraged. Create a vision of what you want Turks to see. I posed a question on my WhatsApp a few weeks ago, and I was like, what does a developed Turks look like? What is your vision for a developed Turks and Caicos? Because we have a lot of persons coming to Turks who are not from here, creating their version of what they want Turks to look like. And a lot of times that doesn't take us in, people who have to live here. So if you think about scaling off to a little something now, but if you think about the housing situation, right, we have hotels that's coming here consistently building, and that's beautiful and that's nice, but we're not building up the other areas and industries. So we have hotels, but where do people go when they come here? Where's the leisure? And then you have people come here, and then we have the housing crisis that's going on. So where do people live? And the cost to even live in Turks and Caicos in terms of housing. So we need to look at different things like that. What is it that a version of Turks and Caicos looks like for us, the people who live and reside here, and not allow persons to come here and dictate what it looks like, because we're the ones who have to live with that decision that they've made.
That was heavy. I would say For those who are away, who may be thinking about it or not thinking about it at all, home needs you. And that's the key point of it. Home needs you. You know what it feels to be disenfranchised in your own home. So come back and make a contribution. You ain't got to live here forever. You don't. But come back, make a contribution so that way those who come after you don't have to have that same feeling you have about feeling that home is not enough and that home cannot give enough. So home needs you.
So, speaking from a very personal point, I would never have been an attorney already qualified if I stayed in the UK. It's only because I moved back here I was able to jumpstart it. And like Ziggy said, when you look back look how many things can happen in 1 year. So I would encourage everyone that's over in the UK, come back home. Like Lauren said, we need you. Home needs you. Come and make your mark and do your part.
Well, we've come to the end of our show, and I just want to thank all of you ladies again for being on the show. And I hope that this is a good inspiration to those of you watching the show. I hope people are encouraged. I hope this will reduce people thinking about returning or going to the UK, or person in the United Kingdom will come home. Sometimes, we complain about, I don't like to use the word foreigners, we complain about foreigners taking over. Foreigners will take over if all of us leave. So if you don't want foreigners to take over, no matter how small our numbers are, you can still be powerful, you can still be impactful. So why don't you come home and make a difference? I know we don't know the situation that people are going through, everybody's own situation. But I'm telling you, the best basically is right here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. We have a lot to offer, especially in the fact that we are a developing country. There's so many opportunities. You can do multiple things. You have access to a lot of things. Just do it and just try it. Even if you fail, like what Ariel said, but you can still, learn from that failure. So I encourage you today is not to give up on the Turks and Caicos Islands. I think you're better off being in Turks and Caicos Islands. I don't know your situation, but like Lauren said, the country needs you. So please return to the Turks and Caicos Islands. Thank you.